The node editor takes Lightwave to a new level of flexibility in rendering with anisotropic shaders. These new shading models and functionality bring you a greatly expanded range of control over the final look of your render, making it easier than ever for Lightwave to provide precisely the look you want at render time. The surface of a CD is an excellent example of what an anisotropic shader could be used for. In this scene, I've got a basic CD object. Let's do an F9 render so that we can see our CD here with just a basic surface applied. I'm going to go ahead and leave that open. Let's open up the surface editor, and I'm going to choose the surface, this surface right here, which I've named reflective, and I'm going to open up the node editor. I can go ahead and close down the surface editor because I won't need that. And as you can see, we have our CD shader. That's the basic shader that we can input the other nodes into. I'm going to add an anisotropic shader, so from Add Node, I'm going to come down to Shaders, Specular, and Anisotropic. Okay, and before I connect it to anything, I'm going to go ahead and double-click to get the properties, and I'm going to change some of the values. Instead of 100%, I'm going to change it to 75% to just lower the specularity, and I'm going to change my U and V values so that I can skew it. I'm going to go 100% on the U and 2% on the V so that I get this nice little sliver right here. I'm going to go ahead and leave the rest of the settings default, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's go ahead and connect the anisotropic shader to the specular shading on our surface and do a test render. Okay, so we get the specular highlights here on the CD. Now we could call this finished if I was just going for a metal surface, but what I really want is the colors that show up in the specular highlights on a CD. So what I'm going to do is go back to the node editor, and I've already created a gradient that I can use, and I've saved it off, which is one of the nice features of the node editor. I'm going to right click and import one of the nodes. I've got a gradient folder, and I've created a CD gradient. So I'm going to open that up and move it right here. Let's take a look at what it is. Basically, I've got a gradient that is like a rainbow pattern. I just wanted to go from various colors over and over and over again. Instead of recreating that here right now, I went ahead and saved it off because I can simply load it up and use it again. So let's go ahead and close that down. And I'm going to feed the color information from the gradient I'm going to use that as my input for my anisotropic shader. You can already see it show up in this little preview. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like in our test render. We'll hit test 9 for a test render, and you can see the colors start showing up in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just minimize the node editor real fast, and I'm going to change the angle of the CD and do another test render so you can see the colors change, and also the specular hit changes as the CD moves around and the light hits it different. I'm going to put it back to 10, and there we go. Now this gives a pretty neat effect, and you could use it on sunglasses and fish scales and things like that, but on a CD you would have these lines of the gradient going in this direction, and I want to recreate that so that it looks more like a CD surface. Let's bring our node editor back up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the shape of this gradient before it gets fed into the anisotropic shader. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and use another anisotropic shader. Instead of grabbing another one from the Add Nodes list, I'm just going to right click and copy, and then I'm going to paste and bring this over here. I'm going to use the same values. This is the shape that I would like. I'm going to feed the color into the input of the gradient. We can already see it change shape here in the preview. So let's do a test render. So I'm going to come over here, hit F9, and now we have something that looks a lot more like the surface of a CD. I'm going to go ahead and minimize, or actually I can go ahead and close the node editor, and let's go ahead and look at it from different angles. I'm going to come over to this keyframe, do a test render, and again, the spec hit changes, and the colors from the gradient are changing based off the angle and the light hitting it. And there's another one. So depending on what angle that we have, it's going to read that gradient that is being input into the anisotropic shader. The unique functionality of Lightwave's new anisotropic specularity, reflection, and refraction shading models brings artists a greatly expanded range of control over the final look of their render, making it easier than ever for Lightwave to provide precisely the look you want at render time.